to Influencer, our series of conversations with the world's digital thought leaders, the people creating the trends that we're all talking about. Our Influencer segment is presented by AT&T. Check out the new HTZ status from AT&T, the only phone with a Facebook share button. Hop on your phone, get connected, and join the conversation. He is the host and co-creator of one of the most popular online news shows in the world, the Young Turks, which most recently won the People's Voice Webby for Best News in Politics and currently gets 28 million views per month. He's also recently been in the news for walking away from a lucrative MSNBC contract and criticizing the network. We have him in our studio today. Cenk, thank you so much for being back here because you were on the couch as a panelist for our first episode. That's right.
I was on the first show ever. Thanks for having me back.
And this has been a crazy week or so for you. Now, you put up this video in your Cenk Leaves an MSNBC video. You say that the president of the network implied you are an outsider. But you win awards, you have a huge following, as we all know. You get 28 million views on your YouTube channel a month. Do you consider yourself an outsider?
Well, of course, it depends on your definition of outsider, right? So, yes, we won every award you can imagine online, Webby, Streamy, Shorty, Best Political Podcast, the list goes on and on. We've got all these viewers. Actually, the other day we got, on July 23rd, for example, we had over 1.5 million viewers, which is larger than any show on MSNBC, larger than any show on CNN, right? So in that sense, it's the new establishment, right? But if they want to call me an outsider, I love that. I think that's terrific. I embrace that. Yeah, we're outside of Washington. We're outside of the establishment. And we're challenging them and saying, hey, you know what? You're not doing right by the American people.
Well, it was a pretty gutsy move on your part, and also the way you've handled it. I mean, being pretty open as a personality, being on shows. You know, what was the process to decide this?
Well, look, the process was really hard because there was a lot of money involved and there's prestige. You know, MSNBC is a big name, television host, etc. And it was hard to let that go, but I thought I had to tell the story of what happened inside MSNBC to me, and that if I had taken the contract, I wouldn't have been able to tell that story. And I think the story is important not because of MSNBC, it's not personal in that sense, it's that, look, here, you know, I got the speech about we've got to be insiders, we've got to be the establishment, people inside Washington don't like your tone.
But why did you assume that they meant the administration?
And the thing is, look, I've been making this clear in every interview. They just said people in Washington. Now later they said, oh, that was your producers in Washington. I only have 2 bookers in Washington, or I did. The idea that they would go to the head of MSNBC and complain about my body language is crazy, okay? So it obviously meant other people in Washington, right? But what am I to assume? His friend Bob in Washington? That doesn't seem to make much sense, right? Obviously somebody, some politician, or maybe the White House, or maybe something else, but somebody in the establishment did not like what I was saying. That was the message that was clearly communicated to me because they said it. They said, we're the establishment. We're the insiders.
Well, are the mainstream news or networks like MSNBC controlling, you know, or are they the establishment?
Well, obviously that, you know, they gave me that speech, so there's no question that that's part of it. And what I want to do is say, hey, look at the politicians. How do they make their decision? They make their decisions 90% based on the money. They get campaign contributions and then they do you know, favors for their funders. But when you turn on cable news, definitely not just MSNBC, CNN, certainly Fox News, they never tell you that. They keep talking about, oh, they have an ideology, they have this, they have that. No, they don't. All they care about is the money. And that's why the Democrats and the Republicans always wind up coming to the same conclusion, which is that, oh, look at that. We should have tax cuts for the rich. We should have tax cuts for corporations. And who should pay? The middle class should pay.
So you're saying it'd be okay to do that as long as they say that on air or on camera?
I think they should point out to the American people that 90% of what goes into decision making in Washington is based on donations, on funders, on lobbyists, on special interests. And they hardly ever do any segments on that. I did, and when I did, I got a speech about how I should be an insider and understand the establishment. It's perfectly okay in cable news to play Democrat-Republican games. Say, oh, you know, the Republicans are bad or the Democrats are bad. But when you say, hey, the whole system is corrupt, apparently there's an issue with that.
Well, are you able to approach the news in an unbiased way this day and age? Is it possible?
It is if you're independent, you know, and so...
But you still have a bias. You still are thinking something.
And that's a great question because it's a difference between perspective. There's nothing wrong with perspective. Rachel Maddow has a perspective, Bill O'Reilly has a perspective. I respect both of that. There's nothing wrong with being conservative or liberal or progressive. That's totally fine. The question is, different if you have a bias. Bias meaning I'm biased because I have certain advertisers and I don't want to offend them. I have certain corporate interests and I don't want to offend them. I want to get politicians back on my show. I don't want to offend them. That's a bias. Perspective is totally fine.
Yeah, so what advice do you have for your 6 p.m. replacement on MSNBC, Al Sharpton?
I'm going to leave that one alone. He knows how to do his own show. He's been doing a radio show for a long time. He's been around a long time. He doesn't need my advice.
What about for advice of how he could get a following on YouTube?
I don't think he's going to go for that. If he does, welcome. Okay, on YouTube and online, we know what we're doing. Okay, we're new media. That's why we have this sizable audience. And what they're dying for is somebody to call it like it is, right? It doesn't mean we have a monopoly on the truth. Of course not, right? But what the audience can tell is they're trying. They're trying to get at the truth. They're trying to give us real information. They're trying to not get biased by advertising and corporate interest, et cetera, and they can see it. It resonates. They look at it and they go, oh my God, that's so true. Look at that guy. He took money from the oil companies and then he gave the oil companies a giant subsidy from our money.
Well, so Glenn Beck actually has come out and empathized with you. So let's take a look at that clip right now.
We know the White House has done that to me.
Not loud enough in my ear. I can barely hear you. That's why
it was announced in the press afterwards that the White House came to meet with Fox to discuss my tone. Now, you don't think they do that to all the others?
So what was your reaction to that video, considering you've bashed him a lot publicly?
I have. Look, obviously, Glenn and I have significant disagreements on ideology, on perspective, et cetera. But he's relating his experience. I don't know. He doesn't know my experience. I don't know his experience. But if it turns out, you know, that there was pressure even on Fox News from the White House, and that's the Obama White House, if he's right, and I don't know that he is, and imagine the kind of pressure they got from the Bush White House, right? Look, this is endemic to the system. So in that sense, he's right and I'm right. It's not just about MSNBC and Fox News. It's also about the New York Times. The New York Times had a story about how we did not chase after Osama bin Laden. They held the story until after the 2004 election because the government told them to. This isn't what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to challenge the government, not kowtow to it.
Now, so what do your bosses say right now at MSNBC to all this that's happening and your public response to them?
Well, unsurprisingly, we have not had a conversation since this all went public. I would imagine that they're not altogether that pleased with it. And to me, it's not personal at all, and it's not about Phil Griffin, it's not about the bosses. He's got bosses too. These are pressures that I'm trying to point out to the audience. Hey, when you watch a show or when you read an article, understand the pressures that go behind it. Understand the motivations that go behind it. It's not the fault of the individual making that decision, it's the corporate machine. And so...
Has this jaded you from TV now?
Well, honestly, I was worried that this was what was going on TV before I went into it. Unfortunately, I went into it and that was confirmed. But it doesn't have to be. For example, you know, there are stations and outlets, whether they're online or on TV, that are independent. So then they would have less of these interests. And there are still people that are definitely interested in what we're doing at the Young Turks. And they know what they get with us, which is independent, strong programming that challenges the government and tries to deliver the truth to their audience.
And
if they like that,
you
then
believe as the truth, though. You believe as the truth or the truth?
No. Of course, no. I don't have a monopoly on the truth. I said that before. What they get from us is that we're being honest. Whether, you know, everybody, there's no claim to the truth, right? But as long as the audience gets a sense, even if it's a conservative, oh, well, that guy's being honest with us. That's his real perspective. And that's how he really views government. That's how he really views the news. And that's what they get from us. They go, okay, whether that's true or not, obviously they're telling it from an honest perspective. And they go, okay, I get it. That's what he thinks about politicians in Washington, et cetera, not biased by any power structure.
Yeah, and in a few years, YouTube, as it gets bigger and works with more advertisers, are you worried about them bringing you in a room and saying, tone it down?
Thank God they have not done that at all. And YouTube is a great place for independent programming. And what an unbelievable outlet. You know, 5 years ago, your only chance was radio or TV. And if you, in order to get on the radio or TV, you had gatekeepers. Now on YouTube, you don't have gatekeepers. They just put you out there and go, good luck. If the audience responds to you, fantastic, right? If it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, can it get any more democratic than that? You know, that's what freedom's supposed to be about. And I think it's a great, if you want to do a strong independent show, YouTube's a great place for it.
There you go. And the Young Turks continues to grow. You have 6 channels now online. How do you plan on staying independent and continuing to make money?
Well, that's the thing. First of all, we already make pretty good money, knock on wood. Okay, we get a decent amount of resources from YouTube based on the advertising. We also get good resources from our audience because they sign up for our podcast. So we are expanding every single day. So the TYT network now has TYT Sports. Yeah. It has What the Flick, which is a movie review show. But the idea is the same in all of those, truth-telling. So we're not going to, say, oh, the refs did a great job in the NFL, or the owners are lovely, or that player was so terrific. We're not going to pull a Phil Simms, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to tell them, hey, look, this is what we really think about the players and the owners, et cetera. And that brand, I think, totally works online. And that's why we're expanding the Young Turks.
And you won't tell us where you're going. You're going to make an announcement in 2 weeks.
Well, no, we don't know yet. We don't know yet. Let's see. Stay tuned.
We'll see. We'll see if it's TV or more online. We'll check out the Young Turks every day at youtube.com/The Young Turks and follow them on Twitter @The Young Turks. Thanks so much for coming today, Cenk.
Thanks, Shira.